Welcome to the Girl Power Alliance podcast, where you're going to meet and hear from some inspiring women with incredible stories who are leading in business and in faith. We are on a mission to impact the world by empowering women to dream bigger through kingdom-minded mentoring and leadership. This is where women grow. Welcome back to another episode of the Girl Power Alliance podcast. I have another beautiful woman on here to share her incredible story. And her story is really interesting, and I'm excited because I feel like this is a whole new perspective on a topic today and a career and a subject. So let me read her bio. The beautiful Courtney Underwood, with over 18 years of experience in human resources and leadership development, she understands the unique challenges that companies face when hiring and managing their talent. This is like I could stop there because that's a whole podcast. As an HR alignment strategist, she helps her clients understand the importance of an effective team and how it impacts the growth and profitability of their business. After spending more than a decade in corporate America, serving companies across several different industries, Courtney knew that she had to bring the proven corporate strategies she'd created to the audience that needed them most. Entrepreneurs that want a strong foundation from the start. Yes, pick me, please. Utilizing her signature systems, tools, and resources, Courtney founded Kite Consulting to help entrepreneurs and leaders navigate the business of people and increase their bottom line. Her favorite quote: "You cannot dominate the marketplace without first mastering the workplace." Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for the opportunity, and I'm even more excited to share all things human resources, especially as it relates to the body of faith and what it means to balance the two.
I mean, when we first talked, I was so excited because I think that you just kind of think of HR in one framework. But here in the world today, and here with Girl Power Alliance, bringing the foundation of faith into everything we do is, I mean, that's the whole thing that we're doing. But to talk about it from a human resources standpoint, I'm certain, and I know from personal experience how incredibly important it is as a believer and an entrepreneur to make sure that the people that we bring on our teams are aligned.
Yes. And I was very intentional when creating my title as an HR alignment strategist.
Yes.
The first question that I often get is, what does that mean? And when you think about alignment, that really means having the right people in the right position at the right time. If any one of those factors is out of order, then you're not aligned. And with that comes chaos and confusion, even when the intentions and the purpose is above board. There is a lot of unnecessary conflict and stress that can happen when you don't have all three of those things in place. So I center on alignment, and it's no different from the body of faith. No matter whether you're in corporate or in ministry, or just starting out and building your vision, you are going to need people. And when you think about what that looks like, building a team, making sure that they're committed and invested in the vision, having discernment and really wanting to build something meaningful that everyone is equally committed to. It's a challenge, but it's not impossible, so that's where I come in.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so I would venture to guess, just because of where your skill set is, that you have been given the gift of discernment. I would guess that that's one of your. Would you say that that's one of your bigger gifts?
Absolutely. God has blessed me with the gift of discernment. And I, it's rooted in who I am, even as a young girl before I knew, how to label it. I always was able to, search people and search their hearts and search their intentions. And more than that, really search, being able to put myself in their shoes and see their perspective in order to come to a healthy resolution, and being able to see what's underneath the surface I use it each and every day. each and every day. And I couldn't imagine any other way of being. And I'm just so blessed to be able to, use that gift in order to build these healthy workplaces across the states. So it's a blessing. It is a blessing.
Do you work with, and I think I asked you this when we spoke prior, but I think it's important for the people that are listening to know. Do you work only with faith-based entrepreneurs, or you just work with anybody?
That is a great question. So I work with everyone, but I don't compromise my faith or my values. So my clients know that I am a woman of faith and that I lead with that. And by taking me on as an HR business partner or consultant, a strategist, that I am bringing my whole self to the table. I am adamant about that. And they never, I haven't met any resistance, to that, because even, in my journey, being very, very transparent about why God has placed me here, they're able to see the fruit of that labor. They're able to see me as a living testimony, just walking in my purpose that God has designed for me is the, best witness that I can use to sharpen others. And so because of that, I work with everyone, but I don't compromise my Christian values.
I think that one of the reasons that you don't get resistance is because, and here's my philosophy on it. I
Yeah.
believe that, like, you hear all this talk recently in the last couple of years about finding your superpower, right? I
Yeah.
believe that your true superpower is when you are authentically being all fully you, like 100% fully authentically you, including all everything, the whole package. So here you are, you're authentically you. You are walking in your gifting, and you are unapologetic about who you are, your faith, and your values. And so people recognize that. So even if they didn't share the faith, they just recognize and they're magnetized to you because of your living in your superpower zone.
Yes, and it is. Thank you. Thank you for articulating that so beautifully. Because when I think about, what I do and how I do it each and every day, it is to glorify God. It is, he absolutely called me, from where I was, just making things happen in the background. One of my nicknames is the fixer, right? People come to
Mhm.
me for,
Help.
conflict resolution and just peacemaking, right? And
Yeah.
so being able to serve on a bigger platform, because the whole mission behind Kasar Consulting is to serve more people. Because I realized that, I couldn't just keep all of those strategies and resources to myself, and just serve at one company or serve in one ministry. I had to help more people. And when you lead with the servant's heart, God will absolutely amplify, your voice. And that's where I am today. And that's even where I'm headed. So,
That's
yeah.
exciting. Well, I can feel it. I could feel it just when we spoke on the phone that you definitely have some very special skill sets. And so you were talking about the top at the very beginning of the podcast.
Mhm.
You were talking about the three things that have to be aligned in order to, make a relationship in business work. Will you speak into that? And are you speaking about that from the standpoint of employer to employee, or partnerships, or how does that all, is it the same?
It is the same, largely, the three principles of having the right people. And that's why, I have a mission to meet people where they are. I don't necessarily have hardline qualifiers in terms of, oh, you have to have a team of this size or you have to have this amount of revenue. It's really about the intention and purpose, behind the visionary themselves, and knowing that they are committed to building a healthy team, or, managing a healthy team if they already have one. And so when you think about having the right people, that part in and of itself, like you said, that's another podcast. When you think
It
about
is.
what it takes to get the right people, having discernment, searching hearts and seeing if they're qualified, to really be bring their best to the mission, right? Because I always say the interview should go both ways, because you
Yeah.
want people to bloom where they're planted. So having the right people is essential. And then you move to the right position, right? Because you can have the right person, but they're not in the right position. So they're not serving effectively. They're not contributing value. They're not able to bring the whole breadth of their skills to the table because they're functioning in the wrong position. And then obviously you have to have the right timing, because you can have 2 out of 3, right? The right person in the right position. But if the timing is off, then you're still not meeting your goals. And so when I think about alignment and having all 3 of those in place, it's a universal principle. Whether you're still working with family and friends, like I said, the unpaid volunteers when you're first starting out, startup culture, or you have a team that's already well established and thriving, you still need all of those factors in order for them to be efficient, effective, and for you to be able to scale your business.
Well, let me ask you this, because I feel like this is a topic, even if you were just hiring somebody to be a personal assistant, it doesn't have to necessarily, these principles are so foundational and so true that they go beyond HR, I think. I mean,
Yes.
it's almost like even when you're trying to choose friends, you know what I mean? I mean, these are foundational biblical truths, bad company corrupts, all of the things that we're taught in the word. So for you, the one that's, you're doing the sifting and the sorting,
Yes.
basically, which
Yeah.
is, how do you stay personally grounded, and how has that process happened for you? Is it something that the Holy Spirit impresses on you, or how does that play out?
So when you think about screening and selection, I think that it's really important to make sure that your intentions are always pure. And praying before every interview, even when reviewing resumes, and praying when I'm serving ministries, I pray at the interview,
Mm.
and at the close of the interview, because I sincerely wish and I sincerely want for people to take on the assignment as long as it's according to God's plan, right? And according to his will. And so that takes not only, a level of commitment and investment, like no other. You have to give a lot of yourself when you're, just that committed to seeing everyone win, right? Both the employees and the employer. But more than that, it takes a spiritual sharpening, by stretching myself in that way. I've had to invest a lot more of myself in my spiritual growth and development. It's never something that you want to be stagnant and you never want to plateau. So because of that, I've had to, double up on, Bible studies and reading devotionals, and meeting with my women's group, and, taking on leadership positions in my own ministry. And because of that, God has rewarded me, but it takes additional effort. I couldn't stay where I was and pour from an empty cup. So I have to keep replenishing my spirit and feeding my spirit to make sure that I myself am aligned, right? So I have to practice what I preach there.
It's such a
Yeah.
that is so true. You can't pour from an empty cup, and practicing what you preach. I talk about this all the time in leadership. Like, as a aspiring, if you are an aspiring leader, then it always starts with leading yourself first. I mean, you cannot, you're trying to be this leader in whatever your business or your company or in the world, but your life is just a shambles. It's like we have to. That's we're the hardest people to lead, and once we can learn to lead ourselves and get kind of that aligned, then that makes it, I think, that's the foundational step to being a leader. So let me ask you this question. When you come across somebody that is in a position, let's say
Mhm.
they're already in a position, because I know when you're consulting with companies, you're doing both. You're bringing people in, and sometimes maybe you're getting rid of people.
Yeah.
So when a company hires you to come in and basically clean it up, help them. Help me, Courtney, help me.
Yeah.
How do you do that if you know that you have the wrong person for whatever reason, that the wrong person is there? How do you handle that?
Well, it can go one of two ways, because first you have to evaluate, how the person is serving in that position. So is it a matter of just not being a good fit for that position, or, maybe prior to that, they were being forced into something that just wasn't a natural fit for them. And they rebelled against that. And now they're
Mm.
seen as problematic, because I've seen that happen
Mhm.
time and time again. Or, is it a matter of, them needing to transition to another organization? Um, Everything I do is centered on open and honest communication. And so, those types of conversations usually end up being collaborative. I never, make those recommendations when consulting to leadership or senior management without having direct conversations with that employee first, by saying, this is how you're perceived. And, couching it in, very comfortable language by saying, I can understand this is not your intention, but, it seems like this is how you're perceived, so let's talk about your experiences and how you got to have this reputation. Having direct conversation is, absolutely according to biblical principles, right? Because you have to come to someone first and give
Yes.
them the opportunity to redeem themselves before you make a decision to force them out, right? So you have, confrontation, recognition, confession, repentance. You have all of those things, and it's no different in corporate. You have to have, the opportunity for redemption before you just force someone out. But all of that is centered on open and honest communication. So sometimes you can relate it directly to performance, or lack thereof, or, just culture. If they have all of the indicators of being toxic to the work culture, then it's worth having a conversation so that they can do the necessary work to become healthier and contribute effectively to their next environment.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot to it. And being, my husband and I have owned a couple of traditional businesses. We've had employees, and it's really hard. I will tell you, I feel like I have some good discernment. I'm good at it, but I could have used you. I could have used you. I feel like this is such an important role that calling yourself an HR alignment strategist, it doesn't even like this is like I feel like the number one most important component because the wrong people in your organization can
Yeah.
be so toxic.
Mhm.
I have had experiences. I had a
Mhm.
girl in an organization a couple of years ago that was so toxic to
Mhm.
that it spread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it spread out, and it was the toxicity was directed toward me personally, but it
Mhm.
spread out on so many other people that it had a huge impact on my entire business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that happen all too often. When an employee is registered as toxic, we call them in HR actively disengaged. So not only are they not engaged with the organization, but it's spreading. And I spent a lot of time working with business partners at Gallup, and they actually study this. So over
Oh,
time, you can actually see the toxic behavior, charted. Right, it spreads
wow.
like a cancer throughout the organization. So it's not just your experiences. This is so common that it's labeled. It's been studied.
Wow.
So it's important to cut things off at the root in order to preserve the vision. I have absolutely seen toxic teams ruin a company and destroy a vision. And it wasn't about whether they had the right product or the right service or the right profitability. It wasn't any of those metrics. It was the people, because you can have amazing God-given visions, but if you don't have the right people in place to make it come to pass, then it won't prosper, it won't succeed. So your experiences mirror so many others in terms of having an employee that's actively disengaged and have their experiences just affect the rest of the team. It makes a difference. Yeah,
It's a huge bummer.
it
So
is.
if somebody's listening and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need Courtney in my life immediately,"
Sure.
do you work with what are your parameters in working with somebody? Do you work with small business? I've heard you reference startup companies, corporate. Like, what are your? Sounds like you kind of work with everybody. What are you looking for in a potential client?
That's a great question. I think more than anything, one of the things that I ask is, it's about intention. They have to make sure that they're looking at work, partnering with me as an investment into not only their peace, their profits, their prosperity, and they have to be committed to wanting to get it right. I always say that I have three levels of service, right? There's the do it yourself version where I'm providing you, templates and handbooks and resources, and it's kind of plug and play, right? You're adding your logo and you're deploying them throughout the organization. But then the next level is do it with you, right? Where you're still getting those templates, but you're also getting personalized training or master classes or workshops from me. And then the last level of service is the do it for you, where you don't want to do HR at all. And, I'm partnering with you in a consulting role to act as your HR business partner.
Wow.
And because of that, when you think about, the qualifiers, the reason I started Kasar Consulting, like I said, is to help more people. So it's not necessarily about the amount of revenue or the industry that you're in, because my clients range, like I said, from startup to nonprofit to corporate to ministry. But it's about your intention. This is not Working with me is not just a formality. It's transformational. And I say that to glorify God, not to amplify myself or my, God-given abilities. And so because of that, it's, I search the heart, just like we talked about discernment, we talked about intention, and those are the perimeters I'm looking for when I'm working with clients. So even with the do-it-yourself clients and customers, not only are they purchasing templates, but each template comes with either an audio clip or a video clip, because I want to make sure that you're using it correctly. With that said, my goal is to help as many people as possible have that strong foundation and strong team. And so that's why I want to meet people where they are. So even if your budget isn't as grand, you can still find a way to, get the help and insight and assistance that you need.
Wow. If you are listening to this and you're like, man, this sounds really good. Let me just tell you, what she is doing is so wildly important. I mean, and being that where you're doing it from such a beautiful place. It just comes across who you are, your heart to serve other people, and your heart to really leave an imprint of God on the organizations that you work with is a really, it's a spectacular, beautiful, beautiful thing. I'm very
Thank
grateful
you.
for. I have never heard of anybody that does what you do from that standpoint. Is this like your niche?
This is me. Yeah, this
I mean,
is.
is there anybody else doing that? I've never heard of anybody doing it from this positioning.
No, short answer, no. And that's how I know it's God.
Yeah.
Because when I think about even my journey into building Kasar, at first it was, with great reluctance.
Mhm.
I was used to being effective and efficient in the companies that I work for directly. And I was, comfortable there, right? But God doesn't call us to stay comfortable.
He
He pulls
doesn't.
right. He pulls us out and, make sure that we continue to, be his light and be the salt and, do more and just serve on a bigger level. And because of that, no, I haven't seen anyone approach it from this perspective. And then when you add the additional layer of being an entrepreneur myself, I can speak firsthand to what it feels like, the vulnerability you experience when you're hiring someone for the first time, or the trust or control issues that you might experience because it's all very new. And so just being able to partner with people through that who are just starting out for the first time, or the stress of having an established team that's not necessarily functioning the way that it's supposed to go because of one or two people, or because things weren't made clear at the outset, and now you're wondering how you're going to fix it all.
Yeah.
I've been in I partnered with people in all of those situations, and I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur myself. So just being able to understand that perspective and articulate it, and absolutely empathize to come to the right solution for the company makes what I do even more unique. So no, I haven't seen anyone do what I do from that perspective at
I
all.
think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's needed and necessary. And for those of you that are listening well, I would assume that almost everybody listening is a faith-based entrepreneur. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast. But for those of you that are listening, it'd be very difficult for you to find somebody that does any type of HR consulting that like what Courtney does, because it would be missing the key element. It would be missing the most important thing that you would need. And
Mhm.
so I'm so excited for more people to hear about you and what you do, because this is needed. It's an wildly, wildly important thing. I have experienced on both ends the power of having the right and the wrong people with you. And I'm apparently not that great at it. So I would venture to say that there's a lot of people like me who you're spinning all these plates, and to have somebody that can come in and use the discernment and the biblical foundations that you do is just phenomenal. So how can people connect with you?
Well, sure. So you can reach me at Kassar Consulting. So that's KASSAR consulting.com. I'm on LinkedIn as Courtney Underwood. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Kassar Consulting. We have a great digital footprint. I'm always putting out more material in order to help and serve and talk about current topics, even in the world of human resources, to make sure that people have access to the information that they need in order to have those healthy foundations and great teams.
Well, all of the information that you just heard will be available. If you're listening to the podcast, it'll be available in the show notes. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, it'll be right below in the details of the video. And all I have to say is reach out and connect with this woman. I guarantee you it will change. It could potentially be the thing that your business needs so desperately, to just make sure that the team that you have around you is the team that God wanted you to have from the get-go. So I just want to say thank you so much for just what you're doing in the world, number one, and number two, for joining us here on the podcast today. And I just think you're amazing.
Thank you. This opportunity was phenomenal. I enjoy serving, and I'm so glad that I was able to share a bit about how I do what I do, all for God's glory. So thank you again.
Thank you again to Courtney so much for that awesome podcast with so many nuggets. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Are you a member of our community yet? What are you waiting for? Women's lives are being impacted every day with the resources that we have inside of the Girl Power Alliance membership. Head over there right now, girlpoweralliance.com, and join the movement. Girl Power Alliance. This is where women grow.